The job of the typical cartoon villain is to be a foil for the protagonist. Usually they come across as intimidating, powerful, or scary in some form, setting traps, destroying cities, and doing the normal bad guy thing. These villains we've come to expect. However, every now and then a cartoon villain is so bizarre, weird, and slightly terrifying, we question what in the world the creators were thinking. Sometimes their oddities are subtle, like their weird design, and others are right in your face, like a villain that lives in your belly button. I'll get to that one soon enough. Either way, they certainly left an impression on our little child minds. I'm Mike with List 25, and here are 25 weirdest cartoon villains. #25. Megavolt. If you were a fan of Darkwing Duck as a kid in the 90s, you probably know Megavolt. A rat with electrical plugs and a giant battery as his villain costume, he wasn't exactly intimidating. In fact, he was kind of just a kooky and weird nerd that couldn't do much right and was easily foiled by Darkwing Duck. 24. Dr. Claw. In the Inspector Gadget cartoon, this main villain's face or body is never seen. All we get is a gloved hand with a gold spiked bracelet. Isn't it just a little weird we never see this guy? Usually keeping villains shrouded in mystery leads to an eventual reveal, but not so in this case. For an entire generation, this villain was a hand and a glove. 23. Gargamel. Infamous villain on the Smurfs cartoon show, Gargamel is a crotchety old man who hates everyone, including the Smurfs. Why does he hate the Smurfs so much? It kind of depends on the episode, but usually he intends to eat them, destroy them, or turn them into gold. Of all the villains the Smurfs could have, it's a little odd a crotchety old bald man is it. 22. Megatron. While the later versions of Megatron transformed into jets and tanks, the original wasn't nearly as cool. He transformed into a gun that could be used by his minions, which, when you think about it, is really, really weird. 21. Prince John. The younger brother of King Richard, Prince John is also the antagonistic lion to Robin Hood, helping steal from the poor to feed the rich. Though, for a lion, he sure is a cowardly baby. Case in point, he sucks his thumb and hides at the first sign of danger. Not really a worthy opponent to Robin Hood. 20. Chairface. It's probably not hard to see why this villain is really weird. He is, after all, on the tick. On the show, he's a criminal mastermind, plotting and scheming, rarely doing any of the work himself. Understandably, his greatest motivation is the anger he feels over his chair-life deformity. 19. Duke Nukem. Don't confuse this Captain Planet villain with the video game hero of the same name. They're nothing alike. This villain has yellow, rock-like skin and wears a Hawaiian shirt, swimming trunks, and white flip-flops. By the looks of him, his primary goal should be to catch some sick waves, but instead it's to totally cover the world in radiation. 18. Skeletor. Nothing says Saturday Morning Kids show like the villain Skeletor from He-Man. An evil demon from another dimension with the face of a skull and the body from a P90X commercial, his annoying hyena-like cackle only made him weirder and perhaps more annoying. 17. Majin Buu. Of course, there are many variations of Majin Buu, so which one am I talking about? I think you already know. Also called Innocent Boo or Pink Michelin Man. Okay, I made that one up. This villain is a big baby with a high-pitched voice and an affinity for ice cream. Of course, despite his childish ways, he's also incredibly strong. 16. Plankton. Formerly named Sheldon J. Plankton, this tiny sea creature is the villain on the SpongeBob SquarePants cartoon and regularly tries to scheme against his rival, Mr. Krabs. Despite being small enough to fit in your hand, Plankton is somehow the main nemesis on the show. Though crafty, he usually ends up failing miserably against SpongeBob. Also, he's married to his computer system named Karen, so there's that. 15. Mum-Ra. The main villain to Lion-O of the Thundercats, Mumm-Ra, must have easily scared tons of kids in the 80s. And you know they were really going for the ugly factor with Mumm-Ra, because even in the show, his one weakness is his hideous reflection. Not even he can stand his ghastly face.
14.
Clayface. Speaking of faces, this villain in Batman the Animated Series was so bizarre. An actor who was disfigured in a car accident, he starts to take a cream called Renew You until he's forced to eat an entire vat of the stuff, which transforms him into a walking sludge pile of facial cream. Creepy, weird, and nightmare-inducing, one must ask how in the world it ended up on a kid's cartoon show.
13.
Sid Phillips. It's one thing to have a mean kid as your villain, but quite another when your villain is a psychotic child version of Dr. Mangala. He fed toys to his dog, tortured toys, and disfigured them with so much pleasure, you wonder what the writers were thinking when they penned the script. Needless to say, he left quite an impression and likely scarred kids for life.
12.
Krang. In a world where turtles can transform into anthropomorphic teenagers with serious ninja skills, this villain might not be so much of a stretch. Still, if a disembodied evil brain sitting inside the stomach of a robotic bald man isn't weird, I don't know what is.
11.
The Joker. This villain, particularly from Batman the Animated Series, is one of the most recognizable of all time. We've become very familiar with him, but in the cartoon he had some very strange moments, including the time he wrapped up people in Christmas presents and slapped a guy with a Joker fish.
10.
Cobra Commander. This villain's main weapon was yelling at everyone and everything that moved. There are many variations of him, of course. His first form had him wearing a helmet with an iron-like plate for a mask. In the second variation, he wore more of a loosely fitted ghost-like hood. Regardless of his costume, yelling in a scratchy smoker's voice was his favorite pastime.
9.
Brain aliens. The show Ren and Stimpy was the epitome of weird, and their villains were no exception. While these villains were minor, only appearing on the episode Marooned, their three-eyed and elephant-nosed appearance took the cake.
8.
Mr. Smitty. In the cartoon Rocko's Modern Life, Mr. Smitty is Rocko's boss at the comic book store. He usually makes Rocko's life a nightmare. However, what makes him weird are the cigar butts coming firmly out of his head and the stogie sticking out of his mouth. It's a little surprising Toad Smoker made it on a children's show.
7.
Him. This grinning, crab-handed devil lookalike is one of the Powerpuff Girls' most sinister villains. Trying to describe the terrifying, bizarre nature of this character is almost impossible. In a colorful and cute show like the Powerpuff Girls, you don't really expect a sinister and demented villain like him to show up.
6.
Hexxus. Similarly, in a cartoon movie about woodland fairies trying to save the rainforest, a la Fern Gully, it's unlikely any kid saw Hexxus coming. Essentially the black-souled embodiment of pollution, this villain is like combining the Deepwater Horizon oil spill with the voice of Tim Curry.
5.
Freaky Fred. With a menacing grin and a creepy demeanor, this villain on Courage the Cowardly Dog is the nephew of Eustace and Muriel, and a barber with trichotillomania, an obsession with cutting hair. On top of that, he reminisces in 3 rhymed sentences, with the last word being naughty.
4.
Rasputin. In the animated film Anastasia, Rasputin is the main villain who tried to kill the royal Romanov family, but he's killed instead and comes back to life 10 years later after existing in limbo. He's unable to die until Anastasia is dead. Putting aside the gross historical inaccuracies in this movie, there's a bizarre musical number where the corpse of Rasputin breaks into pieces and his head hops around on the ground while he's singing.
3.
Condiment King. Out of all the villains Batman has faced, Condiment King has to be the most bizarre. Yes, his character is primarily for comic relief, but still, that doesn't negate how truly weird he is. To add insult to injury, this baddie frequently makes condiment-based puns.
2,
The Mooninites. Most of the villains on Aqua Teen Hunger Force are weird. That's a given. However, of them, the Mooninites are the most frequently appearing and often most bizarre out of all of them. Looking like 2D pixelated video game sprites, they usually come to Earth to taunt the character Meatwad and take advantage of him.
1,
Adonis. This villain on the show Ren and Stimpy is also called the Lord of Chaos, and is a pork chop monster that lives in Stimpy's belly button. Initially, this villain was named Jerry, and he grew offended when Stimpy tried to serve him lint loaf. Eventually, Adonis catches both Ren and Stimpy and eats them off screen. So, who do you think is the weirdest cartoon villain? Let us know in the comments below, or tweet your answer to us at List25.
Enjoying our lists? Be sure to click that subscribe button on the bottom right and the notification bell so you don't miss out on new ones every Monday through Friday. Share them with friends and help us consistently conciliate curiosity. And if you want even more lists, check out these videos here or just head to our website at list25.com.